Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom.
Welcome to Temple Halonim. We like to clap here. Feel free to clap if you'd like. So clap, 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 clap.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom,
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom.
Good morning, Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to Temple Habonim, and welcome to our Shabbat morning service and Leo Katz Bar Mitzvah. This is not exactly the way we planned it this morning. We were going to be outside in gorgeous sunny weather, and we were going to be, some of us anyway, not me, but many of us would be unmasked, and that would have been lovely too. But we're inside, away from the elements, and going to have a wonderful, wonderful celebratory morning. All of you should have a book. Looks like this, Mishkan Tefillah. This is our Reformed prayer book. It opens from right to left and includes both Hebrew and English. We will be praying in both Hebrew and English, and when we hear your voices, then it just reminds us of what a communal celebration this is. So we hope that we'll hear your voices in strength and in song. Please feel free to participate. Support Leo, David, and I. You might also note that the washrooms are in the back to the right. Go through the exit sign, and they're right there if you need to use the washrooms. Also, during the service, we might refer to this ceremony as a Brit Mitzvah. Brit Mitzvah is the covenant of the commandment, and we do so because here at Temple Habonim we're beginning a new era, one that does not rely so much on gender binariness. Rather, given the fluidity of gender, we believe in supporting every student and every young person in their identity, whatever that may be. And so Brit Mitzvah becomes not so much a gendered binary, but rather a much more personal choice. So, with that said, we're going to begin the service on page 185. Please join me responsively. May the door of the synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship.
May it welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, hopes to nurture.
May the door of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity.
May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet.
May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness.
May this synagogue be, for all who enter, the doorway to a richer and meaningful life.
Page 188.
Amen.
שבת החיות גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחיות גם יחד. מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחיות גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, יאללה ניי לה 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 ניי, הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, יאללה ניי לה 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 ניי, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחיות גם יחד. It is now my pleasure to call to the front of the bima Leo's great aunt Miriam, Mom Emily, and Leo for the presentation of the Talit. We're going to do it on the bima? Okay, all right. Very good. All right. Hello, great aunt Miriam. Welcome to the bima.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hello. The traditions of Judaism meant a great deal to your grandpa Fred. This is his tallis, which he wrapped around himself in prayer, bringing all the depth and meaning of Judaism that he cared about so much. He would be thrilled to see you wearing his tallis, Leo, and so proud that you are carrying on the values and wisdom of Judaism. And this tallis case, it belonged to my dad, your great-grandfather, Cy Katz. My mom, your great-grandmother, Charlotte Brewer Katz, embroidered it for him with love and devotion about 75 years ago. By the way, Ben Scharf carries her name, Benjamin Brewer Scharf. Cy carried this case proudly as he went to synagogue, displaying it through our neighborhood for everyone to see. And today, dear Leo, he'd be so happy to know you will be carrying it to temple from now on. L'dor vador, from generation to generation. From Cy and Charlotte Katz, to Fred and Debbie Katz, to Emily Katz and Laura Chapman, and now to you, Leo Chapman Katz. Use it in good health.
Leo, say the blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehitatef b'tzitzit.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Aunt Miriam. That was beautifully said. Mazel tov. We're going to have participation during the service from family members who will be reading. And so we'd ask at this time if you could rise when you read and speak, obviously, with great volume. So we ask, we invite cousin Ben Scharf as we continue with the service on page 195. Ben, if you could rise.
Then there'll be a microphone coming to you in just a second.
Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe. With divine wisdom, you have made our bodies, combining veins, arteries, and vital organs into a finely balanced network. Wondrous maker and sustainer of life, were one of them to fail, how well we are aware. We would lack the strength to stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, source of our health and strength.
Baruch atah Adonai, rofei chol basar umafli la'asot. And now we're so pleased to call Kaitin Galper, Cousin Kaitin, if you would rise, page 197, our prayer for soul.
My soul came to me pure, drawn from the reservoir of the holy. All the time it remains within me. I am thankful for its thirst, for compassion and justice. Let my eyes behold the beauty of all creatures. Let my hands know the privilege of righteous deeds.
Cousin Kaitin, thank you so much. Our service now continues on page 198 with the Nisim B'chol Yom, the daily miracles that sustain us and that enable us to do mitzvot and enable the Jewish people to carry on. Page 198. Leo will chant. Following each blessing, we'll say Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lasech vivina l'chavhin ben yom uvein laila.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokei kefufim.
Amen.
Page 200. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rokah haaretz al hamayim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechin mitzadei gaver.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanotein la'af koach.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hama'avir sheina me'enai utnuma me'afapai.
Amen.
Page 202. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani b'tzelem Elohim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani ben horim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani Yisrael.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael b'gvura.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam otir Yisrael b'tifara.
Amen.
Page 204. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to engage with the words of Torah. O Adonai, our God, let the words of Torah be sweet in our mouths, and the mouths of your people Israel, so that we, our descendants, and the descendants of all of your people Israel, may know you, by studying your Torah for its own sake. Blessed are you, Adonai, who teaches Torah to your people Israel.
Baruch atah Adonai, hamelamed Torah le'amo Yisrael. Page 206.
Elu divarim she'in lahem shi'ur, she'adam ochel perotehem ba'olam hazeh, v'hakaren kayamet lo la'olam haba, ve'elu hein, kibud al va'im, ugimilut chasadim, v'hashkamat beit hamidrash, shacharvit va'arvit, v'hachnasat orchim, ubikur cholim, v'hachnasat kala, ulvayat hamet, v'iyun tefillah, v'hava'at shalom bein adam lachavero, v'talmud Torah kneyed kulam. These are the things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's mothers, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study, morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted to prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all. Please turn to page 225 and join me responsively. What makes a fire burn is the space between the logs, a breathing space. Too much of a good thing, too many logs, packed in too tight can douse the flames almost as surely as a pail of water would.
So building fires requires attention to the space in between as much as to the wood.
When we are able to build open spaces in the same way we have learned to pile on the logs, then we can come to see it is fuel and absence of fuel together that make the fire possible.
We only need to lay a log lightly from time to time. A fire grows simply because the space is there, with openings in which the flame that knows just how it wants to burn can find its way.
We continue at the top of page 224 with the Hatzi Kaddish, which moves us from the introductory part of the service to the Shema and its blessings, which declare God's unity. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
B'alma divrach hirute v'yamlich malhute.
Aye konu v'yomechon uvchaye dechol beit Yisrael. Bagala, bagala, uvizman karim.
V'imeru.
Amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevorach. V'alam ulal me'almaya. Yitbarach.
Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'ha'ar v'yitromam v'naseh. V'hadar v'aleh v'halal shemei dekudasha
Berichu.
le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata
Tushbechata v'nechemata damiran bi'alma.
ve'imeru.
Amen.
Please turn to page 226 and rise for the Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Praise Adonai, to whom praise is due forever. Praised be Adonai, to whom praise is due, now and forever. We continue on page 228. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvarei choshech, osei shalom uvarei et hakol, hameir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha barachamim, uvtuvo b'chadesh b'chol yom tamid, ma'aseh v'bereshit, ma'rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chochma asita, mal'ah ha'aretz kinyanecha, tit barach Adonai Eloheinu, al shevach ma'aseh yadecha, v'al m'orei or she'asita, v'aruchu ha'sela, or chadash al tzion ta'ir, v'niz kechulanu meheira la'oro, baruch atah Adonai yotzer hamarot.
Yesher koach.
Praised are you, Adonai, sovereign of the universe, creator of light and darkness, who makes peace and fashions all things. In mercy, you illuminate the world and those who live upon it. In your goodness, you daily renew creation. How numerous are your works, Adonai. In wisdom, you form them all, filling the earth with your creatures. Be praised, Adonai, our God, for the excellent work of your hands, and for the lights you created, may they glorify you. Shine a new light upon Zion, that we all may swiftly merit its radiance. Praised are you, Adonai our God, creator of heavenly lights.
Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMaorot.
We continue on page 229. In the beginning, even then, a new light was sown for righteousness, a promise that your light would become the catalyst, first for order and then for hope. Author of language and light, help us use these words as you have, to cast light into darkness and draw out justice and truth.
Baruch atah Adonai Yotzer HaMaorot.
We continue in the middle of page 231. Love your neighbor as yourself, you said, and light blinded we saw, that inner and outer worlds are one, as you are one. You spoke and we wrote. We reached for you down the centuries, your light moving before us. As we climbed, fell back, and climbed again, your Sinai of life.
Baruch atah Adonai habocher be'amo Yisrael ba'ahava.
Please join me in the Shema on page 232. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malekuto Leolam Vaed. Please be seated and join me in the Ve'ahavta on page 234, first in Hebrew and then in English. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levacha b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta b'am v'shivtecha b'veitecha u'vlechtecha b'derech u'shochbecha u'kumecha u'kshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha u'tavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'v'isharecha Laman tikseru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'hitem kedoshim le'elokechem Ani Adonai Elokechem asher hotzeithi etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihiot lachem le'Elohim Ani Adonai Elokechem. You shall love Adonai, your God, with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand, and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments, and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai, your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai, your God. Adonai Elokechem Emet.
It's now my pleasure to call upon Leo's brother Eli to read on page 235, When Justice Burns.
When justice burns within us like a flaming fire, when love evokes willing sacrifice from us, when, to the last full measure of selfless devotion, we demonstrate our belief in the ultimate triumph of truth and righteousness, then your goodness enters our lives, and we can begin to change the world. And then you live in our hearts, and we, through righteousness, behold your presence.
Well done, Eli. Thank you so much.
Please join me responsively in the middle of page 239. The eternal truth is that you alone are God, and there is none else.
May the righteous of all nations
Rejoice in your love and exult in your justice.
Let them beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks.
Let nation not lift up sword against nation, nor learn war any more.
You shall not hate your brother or your sister in your heart.
The stranger that sojourns with you shall be accepted as your equal, for you are strangers in the land of Egypt.
Why do you crush my people and oppress the poor, asks God.
We know that the Eternal One defends the poor and upholds the rights of the needy.
Praise to God Most High.
Blessed is God and deserving of blessing.
Page 240, 240.
Kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef eleh, nora tehilot osef eleh. Shira chadasha shivhu geulim, l'shimcha sataya. We continue now on page 243. Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, and rebuild a weakened will.
Please rise and join me in the tefillah, the heart of our worship service, beginning on page 242. Adonai sifatai tifta ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Page 244. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu b'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Hasadim Tovim Vikonei Hakol Vizocher Haste Avot V'imahot Umevi Gula Livnei V'nehem Laman Shemo Be'achava Melech Hoser Umoshia Umagin Baruch Atah Adonai Magin Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah. Page 246. Tagi bor leolam Adonai Mechaye hakol atara lechoshia. Morid hatal. Mechalkel hayim bechesed. Mechaye hakol berahamim rabim. Somech noflim berofei cholim. Umatir asurim. Ukayim emunato. Lishenei afar. Mihamocha ba'al gevurot. Umido melach. Melech mimit umachayim. Umat miyahishua. Veneman latalacha chayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai. Mehaye hakol. Page 248. Nikadesh et shimcha ba'olam. Keshem shemakdishi. O tobish me marom. Kakatu al ya neviecha. Vikara zel zeva armar. Kadosh, kadosh, kadosh. Adonai Sivaot, Melohol haaretz, Kevodo. Adir, adirenu, Adonai, Adonenu, ma'adir, Shimcha bechol haaretz, Baruch kevod Adonai, Nimkomo. Echad hu Eloheinu, hu Avenu, hu Malkeinu, hu Moshienu, behu Yashmienu, berachamav leinei kol chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem, yimloch Adonai leolam. Elohai Yichzion, Lador Vador, Hallelujah. Lador Vador Nagid Golecha, Ul Netzach Netzachim Kedushach Naktish, Vishchacha Eloheinu, Mipuni Lo Yamush, Leolam Vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh.
You may be seated.
We continue on page 250.
We're going to sing Yismachu, and this is the time for joy, for clapping, for to saying, we are here to celebrate. Yismachu, of course, is the root of Simcha, which is what we are doing today. We are celebrating. Please join us. If not in Hebrew, then clap along.
Yismechu b'malachutecha, shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei, oneg Shabbat. Yismechu b'malachutecha, shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei, oneg Shabbat. Am mekadeshe, mekadeshe shevi Shabbat. Kulam yisbahu, v'yitzargu mitivecha Shabbat. Yismechu b'malachutecha, shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei, oneg Shabbat. Yismechu b'malachutecha, shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei, oneg Shabbat. V'hashvi, Ratzita bo v'kdashto Shabbat, Chemdan yamim, oto kerata Shabbat. Yismechu b'malachutecha, shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei, oneg Shabbat. Yismechu b'malachutecha, shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei, oneg Shabbat. As the most precious of days, drawing our attention to the work of creation. Zecher Lemase Bereshit Shabbat. Zecher Lemase Bereshit Shabbat. Yismechu b'malechutecha Shomrei Shabbat v'korei on Yala la 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 Yismechu b'malechutecha Shomrei Shabbat v'korei on Shabbat.
We now call upon Great Aunt Joan Rosenbaum, who will do the reading on page 255. Hang on, Joan, we're going to bring a microphone to you. Okay.
On this holy Shabbat, may you draw nearer to light, peace, and to joy. May we find true rest, holiness in our faith, work, and the study of Torah. Let us feed on the love of goodness. Let us drink the love of goodness. Restrain our thirst for ourselves, and cleanse our hearts to serve like God. On this holy Shabbat, may we draw nearer in light, and peace, and joy. For look on Adonai, Shabbat, look on God,
Great Aunt Joan, thank you for that beautiful reading and for your eloquent Hebrew. Much appreciated. I can see you've been around a prayer book a few times. You know, our prayer for gratitude could not be felt any more than we feel today because we are together. And despite all the travails and all the trials and tribulations, today is a day for celebration and a day of gratitude both for family, for a young man's coming of age, and of course, the fact that we can be together on this Shabbat. We pray together on page 256, in the middle of the page, our prayer of thanksgiving. We acknowledge with thanks that you are Adonai, our God and the God of our ancestors forever. You are the rock of our lives and the shield of our salvation in every generation. Let us thank you and praise you for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your care, for your miracles that we experience every day, and for your wondrous deeds and favors at every time of day, evening, morning, and noon. O good one, whose mercies never end, O compassionate one, whose kindness never fails, we forever put our hope in you. For all these things, O sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. Baruch atah Adonai, atov shimcha u'chana'eh. We continue now as we welcome Great Aunt Miriam Cohn, who will do the reading on page 259, our prayer for peace.
Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim this message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, wealth and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of our world. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praised are you, Adonai, who blesses your people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, Baruch etamo Yisrael, Shalom.
Amen. Yesher koach, and thank you, Great Aunt Miriam. Our prayer for peace could not be more heartfelt today. We pray for peace in Ukraine, we pray for peace in the land of Israel, and of course, within our own borders, our own nation. We sing together on page 258, Sim Shalom.
Our tradition sandwiches two prayers of peace between a moment of private prayer, private reflection. After we're done with this prayer, we'll ask you to have that personal moment and then join us on page 260 for Oseh Shalom. Maybe if we have peace in our hearts, it can push out to our communities, and to our world. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Chen v'chesed, chen v'chesed berachamim. Chen v'chesed, chen v'chesed berachamim. Berachamim. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Amecha. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha.
We take a few moments now for silent prayer and the meditation in your hearts.
Ose shalom bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, ve'imru, amen. Page 260. You'll notice in the liturgy, we actually add in ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. It's not enough for peace just to the Jewish people. We need to think about all of us. And that starts with our words and moves towards our actions. So may the one who makes peace in the high heavens make peace for us, the Jewish people, all Israel, and all who inhabit the earth. Ose shalom bimromav, uyase Yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol yoshvei tevel.
We now turn to page 363. Page 363. For Seder Kriyat Torah Shabbat. Reading of the Torah on Shabbat. For this time, I'd like to call to Lima, Grandma Debbie, Emily, and Laura as we pass the Torah. And at this time, we also note that we are missing physically, but spiritually they are here with us. As Great Aunt Miriam said, the generations not present. Grandfather Alfred Katz, great-grandparents Charlotte and Cyril Katz, Lillian and Charles Grossman. As we pass the Torah on the door of a door, we rise as we celebrate this moment. Generations. Happy is the one who finds wisdom, the one who gains understanding, for its value is greater than silver, its yield than fine gold. It is more precious than rubies. No treasure can match it. We continue on page 364.
Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, Udevar Adonai miYerushalayim. Dor vador nagid godlecha, Dor vador we protect this chain. From generation to generation, the door of a door, these lips will praise your name. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo, Gadlul Adonai Iti, Unaramama Shemo Yachdav. Lecha Adonai hagedula, v'hagevura, v'hatiferet, v'hanetzach v'chachod. Ki cho b'shamayim u'ba'aretz, ki cho b'shamayim u'ba'aretz. Lecha Adonai hamamlacha, v'amin ha'aseh lechol erosh. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'hishtakavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'hishtakavu lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. Romemu. When I say ki, you say ki. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. That's my favorite part. Let's do it again. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehistachavu lahar kocho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehistachavu lahar kocho. You want to do this part with me? Let's do it. Here we go. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. You do it this time. Here we go. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehistachavu lahar kocho.
All of you should have received this Torah sheet as it describes the Torah portion of Bahar. Bahar is the word for at the mountain because these were God's instructions at Mount Sinai. And Leo will be chanting verses 1 through 12 and Leviticus 25 is some of the most inspiring words in the entire Torah. So please feel free to follow along in both English and Hebrew as Leo chants the portion. So for the very first Aliyah, we are so pleased to call family, friends, and members of Temple Habonim, and certainly just familiar to this bima, Simon and Levi Robbins. Ya'amdu Levi Gershon ben Baruch Mordechai v'Kela Yafa v'Menachem Gabriel ben Baruch Mordechai v'Kela Yafa.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorah.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'na'atam lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe Bahar Sinai Lemor. Daber el Bnei Yisrael va'amarta alehem ki tavo'u el haaretz asher ani noten lachem v'shavita haaretz Shabbat Ladonai Shesh Shanim Tizra Sadecha V'Shesh Shanim Tizmor Karmecha V'Asafta Et Tivuata.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. From this way. For our second Aliyah, we're so very pleased to call to the bima Aunt Rebecca Katz and Grandma Debbie Katz. Ta'amdu Rivka bat Yehuda Devorah v'Devorah v'Devorah bat Yitzchak v'Leah.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorah.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Uvashana hashvit Shabbaton Yeh la'aretz Shabbat ladonai Sadaha lo tizra v'harmacha lo tizmor Et sifiach kitzirha lo tiksur Ve'et inve nizireha lo tivsur Shabbaton Yeh la'aretz V'haita Shabbat haaretz lachem lochla leha ulabdecha v'la'amatecha v'lishirha ultoshavha hagarim imach.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'hayayom natan v'hotenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Come this way, hugs if you want to. Shekoah, beautifully done. Yay. Someday I'll touch someone again. In a nice way? Okay. All right. For our third Aliyah, we're so proud to call our parents, our moms, Laura Chapman and Emily Katz. Talmud Lana Bat Yehuda B'Devorah.
Baruch Hu Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
V'liv emteha v'lahaya asher be'artzecha Tehiyeh chal tivuata lecho V'safarta lecha Sheva Shabbatot shanim Sheva shanim Sheva pe'amim V'hayu lecha Yemei Sheva Shabbatot hashanim Tesha v'arba'im shana V'havarta shofar tiruah b'chodesh hashvi'it Be'asur lachodesh b'yom hakipurim ta'aviru shofar b'chol artzehem.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Emily and Laura, if you'd stay up here, it would be wonderful. As we call to the Torah, our Bar Mitzvah, Leo Katz. Ya'amod Ari ben Alana Aliyah Bar Mitzvah LeTorah.
Baruch Hu Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
V'kidashtem et shenat chachamishim shana ukratem diror ba'aretz l'chol yoshvecha Yovel hiv tehye lachem vishavitem ish el ahuzato v'ish el mishpachto tashuvu. Yovel hiv shana hachamishim shana tehye lachem lo tizra'u v'lo tikseru et zifichecha v'lo tizkeru et nizirecha. Ki yovel hiv kodesh tichye lachem min hasadeh tochlu et tivuata. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'hayei olam natan b'toheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Yasher koach.
Beautifully done. In the presence of Torah, we think of friends and family and loved ones in need of healing, in need of a Mishaberach, our prayer for healing. If there are members of your family, friends, loved ones, neighbors in need of a prayer for healing, please feel free to say their names aloud. For all people who are in the midst of COVID, we pray for their refuah shlema, for Temple President Ivan Wolfson, and we're thinking this morning of our friend Jane Berkowitz, our friend Maxine Richmond, Lee Glantz, all members of the Temple Habanim community in need of a prayer for healing. Prayer for healing is found on page 371. Please join us in the Mishaberach. Baruch atah Adonai Rofei HaCholim. Blessed are you, God, healer of the sick.
Mishaberach avotenu bekor abracha ve'imotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishaberach imotenu bekor habracha ve'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. This time we're so pleased to call to the Bima cousin Josh Galper, who will be our Hagba, and great uncle Herb Cohn, who will address the Torah. Please rise. Yamod Hamagbia.
Page 370. V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe livnei bnei Yisrael api Adonai v'yad Moshe. Yalla lai 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 lai, yalla lai 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 lai, yalla lai 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 lai. Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la la la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la.
It's now my pleasure to welcome to the Bema Karen and Michael Robbins, who will be reading they may do it from their seats, I suppose. Yeah, from their seats, page 376, the prayer for our congregation and for our community.
Source of all being, may the children of this community learn these passions from us. Love of Torah, devotion and prayer, and support of the deity. May we guide with integrity, and may our leadership be with service.
May those who reach and nourish us in pleasant satisfaction, and may we appreciate their time and their ability. Bless us with the fruits of wisdom and understanding, and may our efforts be fulfilled and growth.
Thank you, Karen and Michael. Pleasure to see you yet again. We're going to stand right back up as we return the Torah to the Ark. We turn to page 375. Please rise. When Torah entered the world, freedom entered it. The whole Torah exists only to establish peace.
Its highest teaching is love and kindness. What is hateful to you, do not do to any person.
That is the whole Torah. All the rest is commentary. Go and learn it. Those who study Torah are the true guardians of civilization.
Honoring one another, doing acts of kindness, and making peace. These are our highest duties, but the study of Torah is equal to all of them, because it leads to all of them.
Let us learn in order to teach.
Let us learn in order to do.
Eitzaimi el machazikim ba betomcheha meushar deracheha darhei noam b'chol netivoteha shalom Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Kadesh Yameinu Yekedem.
You may be seated. Leo will now offer his Devar Torah, a word of Torah teaching us about his Torah portion. He will do that slowly and loudly and clearly. All of those things.
Don't worry, he put it on every single page. So.
Yeah.
Take a few minutes.
Good morning and Shabbat Shalom. My Torah portion, Parashat Bahar, talks about the importance of a Sabbath, a time of rest for the land used for farming and harvesting crops. In this Torah portion, God tells Moses that farmers shall farm and harvest the land for 6 years straight. But in the 7th year, farmers cannot harvest the crops on the land because it must be a year of complete rest. If the land, during its Sabbath, produces anything, it may be eaten by the owners, their neighbors, their slaves, their laborers, or any animals on their land. In the 50th cycle of the year, there is to be a Sabbath of Sabbaths, a time when the farmland each family owned would return to its original size regardless of how much had been purchased, sold, or leased within those 50 years. This means that if you were a farmer who wasn't very good at farming, you might sell your land to get money, but in the 50th year, you or your descendants would get that land back from whoever bought it. At the same time, if you are a successful farmer who had amassed additional land, you would return your purchased or leased land to the original. This year is called the Jubilee year, and with it, no matter how successful you were, you would be returned to the same status as everyone else. What the Jubilee is trying to do is eliminate, or at least diminish, intergenerational poverty. The Jubilee is also a reminder that the land is not our land, but God's land, and God is letting us cultivate it, so that we can feed ourselves with God's gift of food. In my opinion, the Jubilee year is a good idea, but it isn't perfect. It is helpful because it would assist the poor and make it so that almost everything was equal and everyone had the same opportunities. This way, no one would have a head start in life. If you were successful, then you could live a good life, and if you weren't as successful, it wouldn't affect your kids as well. It would make it so that no one got too rich and no one became too poor. On the other hand, people who happen to be good at farming would be brought back to the same status and land size as someone who struggled. If people knew that the value of much of their hard work and dedication would be lost every 50 years, they might not be as motivated to try as hard or as put in much effort into what they are trying to accomplish. Another problem with the Jubilee is that its rules did not apply equally to all. Non-Israelites did not benefit in the same way as Israelites, and home ownership within walled cities was treated differently than those in outlying areas. During the Jubilee, only some slaves were freed. For my Brit Mitzvah project, I participated in this year's United Way of Rhode Island's Equity Challenge. The Equity Challenge was a month-long learning, reflection, and action program in which participants spent time each day engaging around topics related to racism and equity. Monday through Wednesday, I read articles and watched videos. On Thursday and Friday, I had reflection questions or an activity to participate in. The rest of my family also took part in the Equity Challenge, and at the end of each week, we would talk about what we had learned and share our reflections. Each week, there was a new topic. I learned about how and why the unscientific concept of race was created, and how that concept was used to justify unfair treatment of others, including slavery. I learned about unconscious bias and intersectionality. I also learned how racist policies from the past still affect us today by having created the very kind of intergenerational poverty that the Jubilee would have prevented for Israelites, but not for others. For example, during the Equity Challenge and my subsequent visit to the Museum of African American History and Culture, I learned about how Black World War II veterans did not have access to most of the benefits of the GI Bill. When I went next to the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, I saw videos of Black soldiers liberating a concentration camp. When those soldiers returned home, they were not able to use the GI Bill to obtain a mortgage like my great-grandfather did. I learned about how the value of the home he purchased helped my family accumulate wealth and opportunity that I benefit from to this day. Great-Grandpa Charlie, despite his restrictions on where Jews could buy houses, was eventually able to purchase a home in a safe neighborhood with good public schools, clean air, and a park within walking distance. As part of my project and museum visits, I learned how racist redlining policies forced many Black Americans into rental neighborhoods that lacked safety, well-funded school systems, fresh air, and access to parks. I chose to do this particular project because deeply engaging in the process of learning is a central Jewish value. It certainly is in my family. And in order to engage in another central Jewish value of tikkun olam, healing the world, I first have to understand what needs to be healed and why. As I have learned throughout this experience, Paul Farmer was right when he said that the idea that some lives matter less is the root of all that is wrong with the world. Part of my responsibility as a bar mitzvah will be to continue to educate myself on these topics and to advocate for a more just and equitable society. As I mentioned before, I recently visited the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. Towards the end of the permanent exhibition, we saw a collection of drawings made by Jewish children in Theresienstadt, the ghetto and concentration camp where my great-grandmother's cousins, Magda and Vera, were sent. 2 of the drawings were made by a boy named Leo Katz. Leo Katz was deported to Theresienstadt when he was 10 and killed at Auschwitz at 11. I have chosen to share my bar mitzvah with him as he was not able to have his own. It's an honor to commemorate him on this day. It is also an honor and a joy to celebrate this day with so many family and friends. I would first like to thank my moms for always being there and helping me through challenges I have faced, and also for just being awesome parents. I'm now told that I should thank my brother Eli. Eli, thank you for always being by my side and being a great example of how to let things roll off my back. I would like to thank Rabbi Klein for welcoming me and my family into Temple Habonim and for instilling me in a love for Jewish worship. Thank you to Rabbi Howard and to David for all their wisdom and guidance in preparing me for this day. Lastly, I would like to thank all my friends and family who are here in person and virtually to help me celebrate this special day. I'm so grateful to have all of you in my life. Thank you.
Beautifully done, Leo. Thank you so much for an absolutely wonderful Devar Torah and for teaching us so much. And I will get back to your Devar Torah when I speak with you. But for the moment, I would like to call up Emily and Laura, your moms, and they will offer words of congratulations to you at this time. Well deserved.
Leo, that was wonderful.
Thanks.
So well done. We'd like to start by expressing our gratitude to everyone for making today so special. Thank you to Rabbi Howard and to David for all your work in preparing Leo for his bar mitzvah and getting us to this day. Thank you to Ivan and Adina and the rest of the temple leadership and staff for your flexibility and support. We also want to express our gratitude to Rabbi Klein and the entire Temple Habonim membership for welcoming our interfaith two-mom family, or as the boys refer to it, our momarchy, into the temple community.
A special thank you to Karen and Michael Robbins for leading us here. Most of the major choices we have made over our 15-year friendship have been by following in your footsteps: realtor, ophthalmologist, neighborhood, first preschool, second preschool, summer camp, brisket recipe, just to name a few. You have never led us astray, and Temple Habonim wonderfully has been no exception.
Thank you to all of you here today for coming from near and far to celebrate with us. Today is a very special day in our family. Of course, it's Leo's bar mitzvah, and we are so grateful and relieved to be able to gather in person with you all. In addition, it's our nephew Ben's birthday. Happy birthday, Ben.
Happy birthday, Ben.
Thank you for sharing your day with us. It's also our 16th wedding anniversary. To look out and see so many of the same faces who shared that day with us so many years ago. It's great to have you in our world, and it's a glorious sight to behold.
Today also happens to be the date of my 25th college reunion. If you had told me on this day 25 years ago what today would behold, gathering here to celebrate the bar mitzvah of my eldest of two wonderful, thriving sons with my amazing, beloved wife in a synagogue that welcomed our interfaith two-mom family with open arms, surrounded by a sea of love and support, I would not have believed it. At that point in my life, at that point in the world, I wouldn't have been able to dream it. And even if I could have dreamt it, I would not have let myself hope for it. Leo, on this day and all the days of your life, you are the living embodiment of reality better than what you can conjure. On this day and on all the days of your life, you are the living embodiment of possibility that lies beyond hope. If you ever find yourself struggling to believe that a happy future awaits, if you ever find yourself struggling to let yourself hope, we hope that you can remember this day and everything that it and your very existence proves. Remember looking out at all who are gathered here and know that you are loved and cherished and adored. Remember, too, the words of your Devar Torah, the lessons from your Bar Mitzvah project, and the responsibilities of being a Jew. May you always advocate for those less fortunate. May you always work to heal the world. May you always side with the oppressed. May you strive in ways large and small to undermine the forces that enable oppression and inequity. May you remember who you are and all that that means.
Because who you are is a wonderful young man. You're hardworking, you hold yourself to high standards, you're self-motivated in your studies, and have taken full responsibility over managing your schedule and your time. You also have a thirst for learning new things and have taught yourself how to solve a Rubik's Cube, how to play chess with openings and gambits I can't even pretend to understand, how to juggle and throw a javelin, and how to design beautiful modern homes on SketchUp on your computer. You are stoic and brave, like the time you broke your arm in preschool and didn't want to cause a fuss by telling your teachers, so you waited until Nelia, your nanny, picked you up to mention that fall off the slide that had occurred many, many hours before. And you have a sense of humor that's worth waiting for, witty and often with a deadpan delivery that sometimes hits us unexpectedly, but often at a time when we all need a good laugh and a break from the moment at hand. You take the assignments you are given seriously. When Eli was born, we told you that your most important job as a big brother was to keep Eli safe, and you have. You're your best as a big brother when nobody's watching, only we know. Teaching him math and chess, making sure he's ready for school, tying the laces on his cleats. When nobody's watching is when it's the hardest to do the right thing. You're a good friend. Seeing you and your friends hang out together has been a joy. Thank you to all of Leo's friends who are here today. We're grateful you are in Leo's life and that you are here to celebrate with us. Thank you in particular to Levi for being such a good friend. The preschool teachers couldn't tell, but Levi, you knew Leo wasn't okay when he broke his arm. You were there for him then, and you have been since. And we hope your friendship will endure, and like your parents and us, you will share good realtors, good ophthalmologists, and good brisket recipes in the future.
Leo, you took the process of preparing for your bar mitzvah seriously and required only rare prompting to complete tasks. You engaged seriously and deeply in the equity challenge and in our subsequent museum visits. Walking through those places together, mostly quietly, sometimes pausing to discuss the content of the exhibit or the architecture and design of the spaces, is one of my most treasured experiences as a parent. It was a delightful bonus to see you learn about Arthur Ashe and come to better understand why Grandpa Fred respected him so much, as well as coming across the rescue boat in the Holocaust Museum that gave me the opportunity to tell you how your great Aunt Joan became a Danish dame. We had talked about sharing your bar mitzvah with someone you learned about during our museum visit. Looking up together after reading the inspiring stories of the righteous among the nations to see the drawings that evil Leo Katz had made in the same camp that we had recently learned that great-grandma Charlotte's relatives had been in was a deeply moving experience. Leo, being here with you today, celebrating your bar mitzvah, watching you inherit Grandpa Fred's tallis, listening to you chant the Torah, surrounded by our friends and family, is so deeply meaningful that it no surprise makes me cry. It also takes my breath away.
We're so proud of you and the maturity you demonstrated during that experience and throughout your bar mitzvah preparation today and on all of the days of our lives.
Which means the nights too.
We love you, and we're so very proud of you and so very honored as your parents. You did an amazing job. Congrats.
I often collect photos of our students to remind them of who they were just a few short years ago. I'm showing Leo a picture of him and his cohort, his group here. It was about 4 years ago, around a table in that library right there. Unfortunately, Rabbi Howard hasn't been here long enough to really take all of these pictures, but as he gives that charge, I thought I'd just put this right here so that he can remember little Leo.
So what I do, Leo, is sometimes I write out, like word for word, what I'm going to say. And other times, I need to have a general idea what I'm going to say, but listening to your moms and to you helped me to put together a charge that seems personal to you and to the moment. So, you probably don't probably don't come on Sunday mornings a lot to our tefillah. But we have a really beautiful tefillah, and our Brit Mitzvah class, normally, at least the boys and we sit together, and they usually sit right over there where I believe it's Joan. It's Joan is sitting right there. And the order is almost always the same, because Levi will sit, and then Leo sits next to Levi, and then Eli sits next to Leo. Every week. And maybe as someone whose older sibling was not so kind, I am extremely appreciative, Leo, of how the three of you are always there for each other. Eli, you have one of the most outstanding big brothers of all time. And I know that you are an outstanding younger brother too, but always remember that. You're an amazing kid, and I look forward to being here with you in just a few years. But in large part, I also know that one of the reasons why you're just such an amazing kid is because your brother has set such a great example for you. He says, no, it's not why. You should, I don't know, you saw this last night, but after the service was done, they were like just in the parking lot, and they were doing hand clap games. Just like, it was just about the sweetest thing I've ever seen. All right, enough waxing as a parent. So, Leo, one of the things that you and I have shared is a mutual love of skiing. And it occurred to me that skiing was a pretty good metaphor for this process. So when learning to ski, what is the thing you have to learn how to do first?
Balance.
Balance, that is true. But like when you're going down the hill, there's something you need to do in order to actually successfully complete your mission going down the hill. What would that be?
Turning.
Turning, exactly. You have to turn. You have to, like all of life is pretty much about braking, right? Because you think you can do things, and then you're in the car or you're on the mountain, and you have to stop. You have to turn, and turning enables you to complete the act of skiing. If you couldn't turn, you would simply crash, and that would be bad. So, when one learns to turn, how do you start out? Like, do you start out like immediately knowing how to parallel?
No.
No. What do you do?
You like start with like a pizza kind of.
Yeah, you make like a pizza.
Yeah.
I don't know why it is that when I was learning to ski, they couldn't use the word pizza, but for some reason they didn't.
Yeah.
It was just, you had to be a snowplow, and that's what it was. But it's pizza, and you got to just turn, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And then eventually, that turn becomes much more natural to you, and you can go like that and that, and you can learn to parallel, and you don't have to lift up your ski as much, and you just have to shift your weight naturally, right? And the same, by the way, is true for this process, right? Like you start out, and we look at the English of the Torah portion, and that's good, and so you know what you're doing, and then slowly but surely we look at the Hebrew and make sure that we understand that, and then we move from the Hebrew to the chanting, and then once we have the chanting, then we get rid of the vowels. It's a process. And see, and like everything else in your life, Leo, you give off the impression that it's like, okay, all right. Like I would tell you something and you'd say, okay, and I had never any idea whether or not this would happen. You just kind of looked at me like, okay, and you nod your head. And I imagine you were just that way on the ski slope as well. It's like, okay, I'm gonna make that turn, and then like suddenly I'll just go like that, and then magically, one day you just came in and just like did it. Like no fanfare around it. It just kind of like evolved over time. Perfectly. You chanted as beautifully as you could have chanted. You led this service with such poise and such maturity and such a presence of confidence. And I know David and I feel the same way, is that literally I've had the morning off. Like, that's what it's been, because you have done this so beautifully. The other really important kind of metaphor here to work with is that I've been a rabbi, by the way, for those of you who may not know me, about 23 years, I guess, roughly. Yeah, 23 years next month. And so I've done this portion, this bar mitzvah portion, like quite a bit over the years, because it's a very popular portion in terms of both content and timing, because lots of people like to have their bar bat mitzvah in May because of the weather, as you can see. So normally they focus on the Jubilee year or on the Shemitah year, and which you mentioned. But in all of the years that I've done this, and many, many times, dozens of times actually, no one has ever noted that the Jubilee year does not apply to everyone. No one has ever noticed the fact that there are people who are left out of the equation. That they will not experience the Jubilee year. They will not receive land starting every 50 years. In fact, their land will remain whatever it is. And they will not experience the soaring language and the aspiration of the Jubilee year. That it was meant for the Jewish people, for the Israelites and their neighbors, whatever. And instead of focusing on the aspiration, you focused on who didn't get to be a part of it. And that, Leo, is the most Jewish response ever. Because you wouldn't be who you are, and you wouldn't have taken on the challenge that you did if you didn't understand and act on the most basic Jewish principle, which means and is that no one can be a victim of injustice, period. End of the story. And that when you went to the History of African American Museum in Washington, D.C., and by the way, there was a Holocaust museum decades before there was an African American museum in history. Think about that for just a moment. Not one act of the Holocaust occurred here in the United States, whereas history of African American people is the central historic sin of our people, and yet it happened 25, 30 years before. So, having gone to both, which I believe now will be a requirement that I ask, is that what if every single young Jewish son or daughter went to both museums, one after the other, and thought about the implications of othering people, of saying, you know what, all of these benefits that society can give to you, those are only for some people, not for everyone. And the Jewish people said, no, that's not how the world needs to work, despite the language of the Jubilee, right? We take that language and say, this is who we are, instead of looking at it and saying, but wait, there's more to this. We need to be better than our ancestors. We need to take responsibility, as you have done. Because as you said, and so beautifully, in your family, you've been instilled with a love of learning, which could not be more important, and which you have realized today and every day, but also the love of justice. And that one cannot have the love of justice without the love of learning, and vice versa. And more than that, Leo, more than that, you take responsibility by educating yourself, and then once you know, to advocate. Your life as a young man, as a son, as a brother, as a friend, is wrapped up in that love of learning, and more importantly, a love of justice. Take these words with you today and then bring them to the world. You have been given an incredible example. And may that love of justice and that love of learning inform your life and define your life always. You know, I'd like to think that the words of Torah inspire me week to week when I teach and when I act in the world. But the words you taught us today about this portion are the words that are going to stay with me forever. Because indeed, it is now impossible to teach this portion without hearing your voice and saying, my great-grandfather benefited from the GI Bill, but others did not. And my great-grandfather enabled our family to acquire a degree of wealth that could never have happened for another family. And the recognition that even though my family received justice, another family did not. And we need to change that. As we go forward, as a community, as a people, let us remember these words. And let us remember that it's up to us to act on these words and then to be inspired by them and then go out in the world with our deeds. With that blessing and with that charge, I'm going to ask you all now to rise as we bless Leo on this most auspicious day. Let's go by the Torah. I mean by the word. But not too close. Yivarech Adonai v'yishmarecha. May God bless you and keep you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. May God's light shine upon you and be gracious to you always. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God's presence always surround you. Give you the greatest gift of all, gift of shalom, gift of peace. And let us say, Amen. We would ask you to remain standing now as we join together for the Aleinu, page 586.
Shabeach Adon Hakol, Latei Kedula Liatzer Bereshit, Shelo Asanu Kegoyei Haratzot, V'lo Samanu K'mishpachot Adama, Shelo Sam Chelkenu Kahem, V'gor Aleinu Kechol Hamona, V'anachnu Korim, U'mishtachavim U'modim, Lifnei Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Page 591. V'nemar v'haya Adonai, L'melech al kol haaretz, V'yom hahu, Yihye Adonai echad, U'shemo, U'shemo, U'shemo echad. At this time, we remember those who are not with us, those who have died in recent days, those who have died in years past, during this week, those whose yurtzits are observed on this day, and also members of the Chapman and Katz family who are not with us today, but whose presence is with us always. We remember Alfred Sarrell and Charlotte Katz, Charles and Lillian Grossman, John and Annie Williams, Arthur and Rosalie Chapman. Are there any other names for those who are observing a yard site or in the midst of Shiva and Shloshim? Zichronam livracha, may their memories always be remembered for a blessing. And together as one family, we turn to page 598. Praise God's name and pray the Lord's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Yalma divrach yurte v'yamlich malchute. V'chaye echon u'vyom u'chaye dechol beit Yisrael. V'agala u'bizman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mivarach le'olam u'lamei almeha. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal shmei dekudesha barechu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechemata. Dam miran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom imromav. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. V'imru. Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us say, Amen.
Please be seated.
Now my pleasure to welcome to the Bima a member of our Board of Trustees, Shara Phillip, who will make the presentation of the gifts. And welcome all of you to Temple Hapanim.
Mazel tov, Leo.
Thank you.
Hello. My name's Shara. I'm a member of the Temple Habonim Board of Trustees, and we are very pleased to give you a few gifts from Temple to help celebrate your journey into Jewish adulthood. First, we have the Mishkan Tefillah Reform Siddur with a personalized bookplate, which you used to lead us today so beautifully and intentionally. Please continue to use it as a guide to the words of Torah, a way to both lead and follow along in Tefillah. There's also a Kiddush cup engraved with your name and the date of this joyous occasion. Use it in moments of anticipation and excitement, of ritual and personal practice, and of course, the most important Jewish holiday, Shabbat. And best of all, this certificate, you have proof you did it, signed by the Rabbi David and the board president Ivan Wilson, states that you have officially successfully led us in worship at Temple Habonim as a bar mitzvah. And also, along with the URJ youth, we are honored to present a $250 gift certificate to be redeemed towards tuition for Nifty in Israel or URJ Heller High programs. Use it in good health with the knowledge that a new phase of that Jewish journey begins now. Mazel tov again, Leo. Temple Habonim is proud of you.
Shara, thank you so much. Much appreciated. We would now like to invite the Brit Mitzvah class. Please come on up for Kiddush and Motzi. And David, you got that on your side. Come on up, everybody. Do not be shy. Guys.
He said, do not be shy.
Right, that's what I
Do
said.
not be
Do
shy.
not be shy. All right,
You guys ready?
you ready?
Hold on.
Well, now, I think you should take off the top, Leo.
Okay.
And also, you may want to just undo your mask for just a moment.
Wait.
Or put it down.
Oh.
Yeah, just because it involves it.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't say it wine or juice?
Wine.
It's wine.
I know that.
Or the juice has just gone really bad. Thank you.
Levi, you have juice? No. Wow.
Okay.
Obviously the rabbit's not doing this.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen. Same rules as last night. If you're going to take it, just take it from a different spot on the challah. There you go. Okay, great.
See, they may be shy about singing, but not.
And you can just put it right back. Right there. Great. Thank you. Thank you.
All right,
You can
guys,
sit down.
you
Thank
can
you.
head on back.
You'll just stand.
Thank you. Shabbat shalom.
So, it's always nice to get to go last to speak to you, Leo, because I get to learn all these things about you. Each week, I would meet with Leo and tutor with Leo. And each week I would say, Leo, what's going on? How was your week? And I get the typical, 7th grade answer, good, fine, always one word. What's new? Tell me something about yourself. Good, fine. Took me a long time to understand your comedic delivery, and now I get it. Here's what I want to share with you. Leo, I've known you since 1st grade. That's a long time. It's a little bizarre to know somebody that long. And it's only 6 years, but in some ways it's a lifetime because I've gotten to see you in formative years of your life. So as I was looking at pictures and I was thinking about your brother, who was even, before kindergarten when we met your family, I've noticed a few things. You were always here. If there was a participation award, you would win it. It's going to be weird to think that next year during Tefillah, I'll look over there and I won't see you and Levi and Eli, and maybe I will see the 3 of you. But one thing that I noticed that I always really appreciated about the 3 of you and a number of other people that were with your cohort, although I call you guys the leaders of it, was that you found personal expression in the music. Maybe you didn't always want to sing at 9 o'clock, 9:30 on a Sunday morning after doing a lot of things during the week. But the one that I really remember is when we would go, and I remember you guys kind of doing a little one of these. And what you don't know is that it's taken on a life of its own. So now Rabbi and I feel like we want to do it all the time. Other people in the congregation have seen that. So you've really contributed something that's going to last longer than yourself here at Temple, a little piece of our minhag. And so I wanted to thank you for that face up in front, because you are such a leader. You have leader written all over you. You're quiet sometimes and humble. You are very humble. So humble that I didn't know that you knew all of these things to do, and now I feel like I've missed out on a little piece of who you are, and I can't wait to play chess with you, or have you teach me how to, was one of those javelin or something like? Yeah, javelin. Wow. Okay. Yes, comedy that I can't tell is comedy. One time, Leo came in, and he had actually gotten hit in the face with a shot put, one of those hard balls. Yeah, it's pretty hard. And everybody thinks that Levi did it. To this day, I still can't figure out what happened, because when I asked him about it, both of them gave me like 5 or 6 different answers about how it happened, and I believed every single one of them, to the point that I still don't really know what happened, but I'm glad you're okay. And you really had a roll with it kind of vibe to you. You really went with it and just sort of looked at the best of things. And so it doesn't surprise me to hear that you fell off the slide and didn't tell anybody for a long time, because you didn't even tell me about the shot put. We had to ask. Leo, I pushed you a little bit harder than I probably have some other people. And the reason I did that, I explain this to you, because I just think you have so much potential. I've seen you push past that point and realize some of that potential. And hearing you give your speech today, I really do believe that you're going to be an advocate for justice and to make some real strides that our world desperately needs. And so that's pretty exciting as someone who's a little bit older to get to see some of the youth of the next generation push themselves to care about things that they wouldn't necessarily need to care about. You're quick and you're witty and almost, I wrote, usually you're 3 steps ahead of me, but it's more than that, more than 3 steps. You've got style and class. You've always left me with a thank you and a smile. And so there's a quote that we have in Pirkei Avot, which we study between Passover and Shavuot, which is next week, 2 weeks from now. And it's something that I think encompasses you a little bit. And so it's more about the work that you're going to complete. I pushed you a lot to be less silly. And I realize now that was the wrong move. I need to push you to be more silly because the world has a way of weighing us down as we get older and with the leadership that we take on. And I have a feeling you're going to take on a good amount of leadership. So as you go to your next step, your next journey, hopefully it includes high school or being one of our madrachim or something where we get to see you a good amount. The quote says, you don't have to complete the work, but you can't ignore it either. I'm paraphrasing. Meaning that all of these people here, well, I assume, feel the same way that you do. We all want a more equitable world. We all want a world where everyone can thrive. And sometimes that's a very daunting task, and it feels overwhelming. And during those times, I want you to look at these people, and I want you to remember that you have a whole support team that wants the same things that you do. Really, they just want the best for you. So, we're going to sing a song on page 645. That song is Lechi Lach, the story of our first Jew, Abraham. And God is talking to Abraham. This prayer is from, or the song is from the perspective of Abraham. From God. God is talking to Abraham saying, Lechi Lach, go from your land at a very old age. I know you don't know exactly where you're going, but know that you have it within you to succeed and to thrive. And so I really believe that, Leo. The world is truly your oyster, and it's just a matter of choosing what direction you want to go in and thriving in that way. We both believe in you a whole lot, as does your family, as does the whole congregation. So we sing Lechi Lach. Feel free to sing along. Lechi Lach, to a land that I will show you. Lech Lecha, to a place you do not know. Lechi Lach, on your journey I will bless you. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. Lechi Lach. And I shall make your name great. Lech Lecha, and all shall praise your name. Lechi Lach, to the place that I will show you. L'simchat chayim, l'simchat chayim. L'simchat chayim, lechi lach. Please join me. You shall be a blessing. 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 You are a blessing. You shall be a blessing.
extended Chapman and Katz family. Mazal tov, mazel tov. What a great morning it has been. You did a fantastic job, and enjoy the rest of the day, and go out there and do the work of justice, because that's what it means, to be alive and to be in the human race. Shabbat shalom, everybody, and mazel tov.